do a quick review. We have talked about 5 functions of political parties. We have talked about 3 reasons why we're stuck in a 2-party system. We have looked at 4 types of minor parties, and now we're in the middle of talking about 3 roles of the minor parties. Once we wrap that up, as you can tell from the learning intentions today, understanding the structure and roles of the national, state, and local political parties, okay? Which is not super exciting, but relevant, okay? So let us begin by talking about the second role of a minor party, which is a reformer or innovator. We did Splinter? We didn't.
Splinter was the type of minor party.
Oh, okay. So the 3 roles, we haven't done any of the roles?
No.
Oh, okay. So we got to do the first role of a minor party. Okay. So we're a little bit behind, right? Yes? Okay. That's okay. This is fun. I like talking about this one. Okay. Spoiler. Is that what I have? That's not what I said. Spoiler in an election. Okay. So let me get artistic here. Oh, that might be my best one yet. There's a little extra hump here, but.
That don't matter.
Right? Huh?
Hey, that was good.
Move this over just a little bit. Okay. I know Alabama looks a little bit big here. Okay, that's a river. Okay, now, the year is 2000. Okay? The election is between George W. Bush versus Al Gore. Okay? One of the closest elections in modern history. I believe the Electoral College, you might be able to see it back down there for 2000, was like 271 to 266. That look right? Yeah. It's a very close election. So it comes down to Florida. Okay? Now, in the year 2000, the governor of Florida was a guy named Jeb Bush, George's younger brother. George was the governor of Texas. And Daddy had been president of the United States. Yes? So that's like a power family, okay? Now, the polls came in, and at 7 p.m. on election night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, CNN calls Florida for Al Gore. Now, W. Bush is in Tallahassee with his brother Jeb, watching the election results come in. They immediately contact CNN and say, no, we don't concede Florida. It's not over. Because over here, it is 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Anything west of that river, the panhandle of Florida, okay, is Central Standard Time. Follow me. Now, this river, anybody know what it's called? Country music fans? We were just talking about country music. Way down yonder on that. Oh, Chattahoochee. Okay, this is the Chattahoochee. All right. Now, I lived here, and I went to junior college here. Okay. The polls are still open in the Redneck Riviera in LA, Lower Alabama. Yes? And this is a very conservative part of the state. A lot of Republicans. They're still standing in line and voting, and CNN called the race for them. Then, that night, all the votes are tabulated. And we're all waiting on Brevard County. They're having trouble with their election down there. They're always last. Brevard County is always last. The ballots they were using that year were paper ballots. Now, you guys know what a Scantron is. You put a bubble and then you run it through a machine, right? Scores it, okay? Well, this ballot was similar, but it's one that you poke holes in. Like there's a little piece of paper called a chat. And you poke, you push through it, and then there's a hole. And then after you do all your holes, they run it through, and it counts the votes based on where the holes have been punched out. Yes? Problem. some of the chads that were being punched out didn't come completely off. They were like dangling, hanging chads. And so Gore's like, we need to do a recount of the whole state of Florida. So he goes to the Florida Supreme Court. This is that night. It says we need to do a recount for Florida. And the Florida Supreme Court says yes, state recount. Bush appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court that night, and he says, no, we just need to recount Brevard County. They're having trouble down there. Everybody else has counted their votes. U.S. Supreme Court overrules the Florida Supreme Court. We're recounting Brevard County. Okay? Now, that night, the Wichita Eagle, we used to have a newspaper in this town. I don't really say we have one anymore, okay? Because it's not news. It's just like, it's old news, right? I mean, you guys, I'm sorry, KU fans, that your basketball team lost, but that game started at 4 o'clock or 4:30, right? Game was over by 7. You open the newspaper Sunday morning, not a word about it. That's not good. That's not a newspaper, okay? So anyhow, the newspaper headline, the front page, the Wichita Eagle printed 3 different ones that night as this was changing. So the one I got on the east side of Wichita was different than the news front page that was delivered to Bishop Carroll. Then I found out there was another one too. Okay, so this was going on through the night. Now they're looking at, like, you're holding up these ballots and trying to see, you know, if this is a vote, the Chad's hanging there. But what about a dimpled Chad? Like somebody tried to push a hole in it, but it didn't break off. But you could tell somebody tried to push it. Do you count that as a vote? Or maybe they were thinking, maybe we're going to vote. And they pushed it, but they didn't push all the way through and they voted for somebody. What do you count as a vote? A hanging Chad, is that a vote? Yeah, okay, right. So finally, they do the recount, Brevard County, and Bush wins Florida by something around 2,000 votes and wins the election. Okay, now let me get to my point. Spoiler. The Green Party had a candidate in Florida in 2000. His name, Ralph Nader. Okay, he's a famous guy. Okay, Ralph Nader wrote a book called Unsafe at Any Speed. It was about the automobile industry. Okay, he's an environmentalist. Okay, so not just crashes, but, you know, the pollution and stuff from automobiles and so forth. So Ralph Nader, 2% of the popular vote in Florida. Bush won by 2,000 votes out of millions of votes. You understand? So, did Ralph Nader draw more voters from the Republican voters or Democratic voters? That's an easy one, isn't it? Ralph Nader cost Al Gore the presidency. Does that make sense? Now, did Ross Perot cause George Herbert Walker Bush the presidency in 92? That's a distinct possibility. Perot did draw from both parties, Democrats and Republicans. Okay, so political scientists still argue over that, whether Perot spoiled that election for Bush. Okay, I think he probably did. Okay, so we talk about, is it a wasted vote when you vote for a minor party like this, or a third party? You guys have to make that decision yourself. Okay. All right. So there's number one, spoiler. Okay. The second role of a minor party is reformer or innovator. Reformer or innovator. So let's stay with the Green Party on this. Okay. Has one of the two major parties adopted the Green Party platform? Kind of talked about this already, right? Yeah. So did the Green Party people get what they want in the end? Yeah, they've reformed the system. Okay, they've innovated the system. And that is an important role of these things, of these minor parties. We talk about the Tea Party in 2009. Really helped push the Republicans into control of both houses of Congress. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think these minor parties are a good thing. Okay, would I vote for one? Probably not. But the third reason will tell you why I think they're also important. Okay, so innovator, reformer. Okay, and in the end, a lot of times these third minor parties get what they want in the end. Okay. All right. Let's see that from up here. Okay, right there. You guys know who this guy is? Ron Paul. Okay. Ran for president. It's 2008. Okay. Ron Paul was a member of the House of Representatives from Texas for over 30 years. He's a medical doctor. He's an OBGYN. Okay. His son, you may have heard of, Rand Paul. Okay. R-A-N-D, Rand Paul. Okay. Is also a medical doctor. He's an obstetrician. Okay. And he serves Kentucky in the United States Senate. Both father and son are really libertarians. They both ran as Republicans. Now, Ron Paul ran for president 3 times, okay, unsuccessfully. Rand Paul ran in 2016, the son, unsuccessfully, okay. Don't know if Rand Paul's going to throw his name in the ring again this time, okay. A word on the street, okay, those under the rock. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina is visiting Iowa and New Hampshire this week and has a war chest of about $20 million. Look for Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina to announce he's running for president within the next couple of weeks. Okay. He's an African-American Republican. Okay. And I like him. I like Tim Scott. Okay. He's fantastic. In my view, okay, that's opinion. Okay. Now, this guy's pretty fantastic too. Now, remember when I told you the story of when I went down to the caucus in Sedgwick County at Century Tube, Trump came, Cruz came, right, all that? Okay, that was 2016. So 8 years earlier, I go down, that's where I got this bumper sticker, okay? I went down to the caucus, and the guy that was handing this out had long hair, beard, and piercings in weird places. Now, this is a Republican caucus. What's this dude doing here? You know what I mean? Like long-haired, creepy people. All right? They don't look like Republicans. You know what I mean? They don't look like Republicans. But they're there. Okay? And what number 3 is, and let me write it up here because this is what caused me to show a video yesterday. I was trying to write this word, 0 hour, and it took me like 5 minutes. And I'm like, I have no business teaching today. Okay, so this is number 3. Stops. It's a mouthful. Okay. Disenfranchisement. It is a long word, okay? No issues today. I got like almost 8 hours of sleep last night, so I'm good. Yeah. So your franchise is your vote, okay? What was cool about 2008 and seeing these long-haired, creepy people at the Republican convention was that these people felt like they had somewhere where they belong. You understand? These are libertarians, you know, and they were welcomed into the tent of the Republican Party because of Ron Paul. You understand? So these minor parties play a role here where normally people that don't have anybody like they belong to may have somebody to belong to be part of the process, to be part of the franchise. Okay? If that makes sense. All right, so long story long on the disenfranchisement. Okay? But I think it's a pretty good example that I could give you. Okay? And this can happen with both parties, with minor parties. Okay? All right, good. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about so we got the role of three minor parties. We're going to talk about the organization of these parties. So organization of the political parties. And yeah, we're going to look at the national, the state, and the local. We may only get through the national today, okay? All right, so, guys, the minor parties like Libertarian, Green Party, they have national parties too, okay? But we're just going to focus on the big two, all right? So you have what's called the Republican National Committee. I'm going to abbreviate if that's okay. Republican National Committee, okay? And the Democratic National Committee. These are the national parties, okay? Now, membership in these parties is limited, okay? So there's only, for the Republicans, there's only 100 members of the National Committee. 2 from each state, and 1 of each gender. So 1 man and 1 woman. Very inclusive of the Republicans there. Now, I assume you just have to identify as one of these. Right? Now, Democrats are more Democratic. Okay, so they have 133 members. Okay. Oops. Okay, now, they also give 2 for each state. So it mirrors this, right? So I can just do this, okay? 2 from each state, 1 man, 1 woman, okay? But the 33 are at-large members for bigger states, more populated states. So California would have more DNC committee members than Kansas would. Does that make sense? Which is more Democratic. Okay? These are the parties. These are the major parties. Okay? Now, they used to have, remember, I gave you 5 functions of the political parties, right? So nominating function, appointment function, watchdog function, informative, and the last being practical. Okay? So these are the functions of the parties. Now, they have 2 main jobs, 2 main roles. They have 5 functions, 2 roles. All right? Okay. Stay with me. Okay. Now, number 1, they run the conventions, the national conventions. Okay. So when we get to an election year, 2024, remember, Iowa, New Hampshire, now South Carolina being moved to the front of the line for the Democrats, okay? That's January, February of the election year. What month do they hold these conventions? Does anybody remember? So you go through those early months, and you have all the primaries. Our primaries in June in Kansas, right? The caucus, okay? August, okay? These conventions are run in August of election years, okay? So the video yesterday, you guys watched the Democrats? Yeah. So Chicago, 68, National Convention, right? I didn't remember what year it was, 72. One of those guys said, we opened up the doors to the Democratic Party and 11 million people walked out. I don't know if you remember that line. That was 72. Nixon won every state but 2 in 72. Okay. I know people, because the name Nixon brings about bad mojo, right? Bad energy. Nixon, okay? He won 48 states. He was very popular, okay? And again, like the video, the Republican Watch one we watch tomorrow will tell you, Nixon was no conservative. He was a moderate, okay, especially in domestic policy. So LBJ came up with the Great Society, right? And the war on poverty. Guess who funded it? Nixon. Okay, he came in right after. Foreign policy. Nixon was a rock star. Okay, like Reagan was a rock star when it came to foreign policy. Okay, guys, this week, let me just throw this. I hadn't talked about this in other classes, but pay attention, guys. This last week, Chairman Xi of China flew to Moscow. You guys know this. Okay, this is a big meeting. This is important because Russia's at war, and basically the whole world has kind of said to Russia, you're doing the wrong thing. Now, India hasn't because India is getting a lot of cheap energy from Russia right now. China's getting a lot of cheap, the fear is that these two countries will join together, China and Russia. We don't want that. When China fell to communism in 1949, guys, 48, 49, you don't want those two big freaking communist countries working together against us. Nixon exploited that. He opened up dialogue with the Chinese, which made the Soviets uncomfortable. And then we started trading with China. Okay? And that pissed the Soviets off. So there was a split between those two big communist countries. And Nixon and his Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, were the ones that, kind of came up with that policy and exploited it. It was really smart. Guys, we don't want to see China and Russia working together. And some of the words coming out of that meeting this last week are not encouraging. And our media is not really talking about it. Okay, it's not a positive thing. Now, China is going to start helping Russia. So, yeah, hopefully we got some smart people in there that are going to, pull the right buttons and do the right things to put pressure on China not to get too involved in this. We have some leverage with China. Oh, by the way, right now, I went to Burger King. I had on the news, and the CEO of TikTok is being questioned in front of the House of Representatives today. In just a few minutes I listened, they were asking about the parent company of TikTok and their relationship to the Chinese Communist Party. Okay. And so we're trying to figure out whether we want to ban this or not. TikTok in the United States, it's been banned on, state, like federal government employees' phones. You're not allowed to have TikTok. Some states have told all their state employees, do not put TikTok on your state phone. Okay. You're giving access to information of federal and state employees to the Chinese Communist Party. Okay. We shouldn't do that. Okay. So I don't know I know some of you guys are probably TikTok fans. There's something like, I forget the number, how many millions of Americans have TikTok on their phone. Okay. You have TikTok? Nope. Who's got TikTok? Oh, yeah. So China has geolocation of all your movements. I know. What do you have to hide? Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about these conventions. Okay. Used to be back in the day. You go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, guys. These last 4 days. Okay. Did we look it up in here? Did I tell you that the 2024, the two cities they're going to? 2024, the Republicans are going to hold theirs in Milwaukee. Okay. Wisconsin, swing state. Okay. Democrats are going back to Chicago, baby. Okay, 2024, all right? So, I mean, that'll be kind of interesting to see how that, I mean, obviously people are going to talk about 68 as the 2024 one comes. I mean, people are going to talk about it, the history of it. So you will know what they're talking about. Yes? Yeah, okay. Now, what happens, guys, these used to be televised all 4 days, like 4 hours a night on your ABC, CBS, NBC. Like your regular programming is being interrupted. Like your show's not on because the stupid politics is on TV, right? And then what the networks found out, nobody's watching. They're losing revenue, advertising revenue, because nobody's watching this crap. 4 days of it. Okay? So they took it off the networks. Then we had cable channels. And then the cable channels all ran it wall to wall for 4 days. And they realized Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson and Bill O'Reilly have much higher ratings than these conventions. So they took it off. Now you got to watch C-SPAN. Okay, they cover it wall to wall. All right, you guys heard of C-SPAN? Scrolling through, you have cable? I don't know. I'm sure Dish has it. Use Dish or just streaming, straight streaming. Okay. And you can stream. You can stream C-SPAN as well. Okay. You can stream it off your computer. You can watch it live. Okay. But it's government funded, so they basically do government programming 24 hours a day. Okay. It's supposed to be apolitical. It's not political. It's just coverage. Okay. Now, so you got to watch that. Now, the COVID one, dude, the last conventions, it was awful. I mean, like, because that was 2020, guys. We were still like, it was still COVID. You know what I mean? Like, so the Democrats had to go first, and their convention was brutal. I mean, like, they're trying to do the Zoom thing, right? By that time, people are just done. They're done with it. So the Republicans got the benefit of watching the Democrats and how bad theirs was, and they tried to, like, spruce it up some, but it wasn't any good either. Okay. We're back to normal. So listen, all these people will convene on Milwaukee and Chicago. You saw the speeches and stuff in the video yesterday, okay? So what really important comes out of these conventions? First of all, the nomination. So when the candidate accepts the nomination for the party for president of the United States, and they give a speech, the first lady or potential first lady or first husband will give a speech, okay? So like Melania, hers was famous from, I think, 2020 because she copied a speech from Michelle Obama, like plagiarized it. It was awful. I mean, I felt really, but so these people have speech writers, right? They don't write their own speeches. So whoever was working for her, like, really screwed her over on it. It made her look bad. I felt sorry for her, but she should have known better. Okay, it's tragic. Okay, now, so those people look forward to those speeches, and then you have the keynote speaker. Okay, so this is the biggest draw of the night, and what the two parties generally do is they pick a rising star in one of their parties to give a speech on prime time. Okay, that will kind of be somebody that in the future will be a leader in the party. So, example. 2004 Democratic National Committee, keynote speaker, guy most people never heard of. 2004. Who? Barack Obama. He gave the keynote address at the DNC convention, and people were like, wow, this guy. Okay, he's got the look, he speaks really well, he's eloquent, all this stuff, right? 4 years later, he's president. Okay, so you look for somebody in there to be like, who's next? Okay, to give that speech. So that's kind of an important one. Then they write what's called a party platform. been using this word a little bit in my lecture. Okay? This is the party's stance on all the major issues. So what's the Republican Party's stance on abortion? It should be illegal, right? Okay, so the platform is made up of planks. Issue, okay. So the Republican Party's stance on, let me rephrase. Republican Party's plank on abortion is that it should be illegal. The Republican Party's view on abortion, taxes, the border are all part of their platform. So it's like a deck. Planks of wood, right? Make up a platform, a deck. Okay, you guys, you got it? Okay. So they write this at the convention. All right. It often bears the nominee's views. So like Trump's party platform for the Republicans was different than say John McCain's or Mitt Romney's. Okay. It's going to, be influenced by the candidate themselves. Okay. Now, guys, remember, we're talking about politics, so I'm going to get political because this is one of the more talked about platforms in recent history. Was the 2012 Democratic Party platform. It wasn't so much what was in the platform, but what was left out for the first time in more than 130 years. What the Democrats took out of their party platform was this important one word: God. Okay? They took God out of their platform. So the Republicans saw that and they pounced on it. Okay? They're like, they took God out of their platform. Okay? So what did the Democrats do? They put God back in the platform. As if you can just move God around in this one. Okay, so, but that was a thing. Like, is it really that important? I mean, if you're looking at what these parties stand for, it is. Do most people have a clue? No. But you're taking an honors government class, so you do have a clue. Yes? Yep. That's why we're talking. Okay? So, they got to run these conventions. Now, as soon as these conventions are over, oh, one more thing they used to do that made it, like, important. They would wait till the convention to name the running mate. Who was going to be the vice presidential candidate? We're going to find out at the convention. You understand? So there's like, what's the word I'm looking for? There's anticipation. Well, Al Gore screwed that up in 2000 when he announced his running mate before the convention. Why? He was trying to get a bounce in the polls. Okay? And he named Joe Lieberman, who would have been the first Jewish American to be on if elected. Okay? I think he was the first Jewish American on a ballot, on a ticket. Okay? And I like that guy. I like Joe Lieberman. He's still around. Yeah, he's Jewish. He's from Connecticut, but a strong foreign policy guy. I like him on foreign policy. Obviously, probably don't agree with him on everything, but I'm kind of a fan of that guy. Okay. Now, so, yeah, the vice presidency. So now they announce far in advance of that. Okay, so no anticipation. All right. All right. So the number 2 major role of these committees Yeah.
Is this roles of the conventions or the parties?
The committees, which are the parties, yes. Let's see what I have in mind. How about major job of these 2 committees? So when we talk about functions of political parties, that's any kind of political party, right? 5 functions of a political party. These are 2 jobs that the national committees have. Clear as mud? Okay. All right, so. Personal story? Okay, so Mr. Ebright started getting involved in politics shortly after I graduated from college. The first campaign that I worked on was Jeb Bush's first run for governor of Florida. Okay, I was living in the Panhandle, and I liked this guy, Jeb. Remember, I was one of the first Republicans in Florida, right? Because everybody used to be a Democrat. I told you that story, right? So I'm like, let's go with this Jeb Bush guy, right? So I didn't do that. I put out some signs and, bumpers, handed out bumper sticker stuff and, just some sort of stuff, volunteer. He lost Jeb Bush in his first run to a guy named Lawton Childs. Walking Lawton Childs. Okay, he was a longtime governor of Florida. You just, everybody loved Walking Lawton Childs. Okay, they got the nickname Walking because he'd go out campaign walking around. They call him Walking Lawton. Okay, now that's Tallahassee. Okay, governor. So then I moved to Florida in '95, and then I started teaching government. So my wife and I used to give money to the Republican National Committee. They raised money. Okay, and what do they do with that money? Well, if there's a candidate, a Republican that is in a tight race, the Democrat, they'll help them, they'll fund them, okay, give them money, run campaign ads for them, stuff like that, okay? So we gave money, every year, not a lot of money, $50, $100, something like that. But if you pull that together with millions of people that give, that turns into a lot of money. So anyhow, in 2000, George W. Bush ran for president for Texas and said he's going to cut the size of government, stop spending so much money, and so forth. Very conservative message. And I'm like, yeah, let's go. I want this guy to win. He also said we are not going to be the policemen of the world any longer. We're not going to stick our nose into everybody's business on every little thing. We can't be the policeman of the world. Okay. I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with that too, And so, well, by 2003, we were in 2 wars. The first one we couldn't really help. It was Afghanistan, right? We got hit by the Taliban allowed Al-Qaeda to set up shop in Afghanistan. They freaking, they hit us hard. We got to do something, right? I believed in that. Okay. And then I believed in the Iraq War in 2003. And then I think I told you guys that, I've realized that since that I think that was all a bad idea. Okay. We shouldn't have done that. But I was duped into believing this was the right thing to do, partially because I was not educated as I am today. Okay. So anyhow, the RNC keeps calling me, like this is 2003, 2004. And I'm like, no, I'm not sending you any money. You guys are spending money like drunken Democrats. I mean, like Bush was president for 8 years. You know how many bills he vetoed in 8 years? 2. In 8 years. I'm like, dude, they're sending all this spending to you. Veto it. Say no. Cut some of this. Never did that. And I've never given money to the RNC ever again because they don't believe in what I believe. I am a man without a party. Some of you might be men and women without a party as well. But these are the 2 vessels. What we're stuck with. Sometimes that sucks. Okay? It looks like we're running out of time. Okay. We'll pick up from there, do state and local probably Monday. Okay, we'll watch the Republicans tomorrow. Good? You get a little Ronnie Reagan, you can't go wrong there. Okay.